Amor sin fronteras, amor es love.
This all began when I read about a librarian who started a music festival at the border between the United States and Mexico.
¡Que viva México!
He invited us to join him to sing, perform, and dance. And that wall built to divide us was transformed into something that unites us. I fell in love with this idea of people coming together using the primal connection of a Mexican folk music called son jarocho.
Despierta, patria, despierta. Despierta, patria, despierta.
This is not just a story. It's a vision of a world full of hope, friendship, and love.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Enrique Acevedo. I'm a correspondent for the new 60 Minutes program, 60 in 6, streaming on Quibi, veteran of Univision Noticias for the past 10 years, now focusing on telling stories on that new 60 Minutes show. I'm the first Latino in the 53-year history of that 60 Minutes brand, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this town hall with the creators, the creative force behind Fandango at the Wall. An incredible story. I was telling the director of the film that I'm not from the border. I'm not from Veracruz, and I have no musical talent, but I felt a deep connection with the movie, with the characters, the themes, and this idea of cultures borrowing from each other, learning from each other, feeding off each other at the border. A love letter to the border, to Mexican music, to son jarocho, and to this possibility of more people understanding on both sides of the border that our destinies are tied together. And what a better way to live that reality than through the power of music. And we're going to have an incredible conversation again with a panel, a team of creators and artists. We have Varda Bar-Kar. She's a film director, writer, and producer based in Santa Monica, California. She's, of course, the director of Fandango at the Wall. Arturo O'Farrill, multi-Grammy award-winning composer, pianist, educator. Arturo is also the founder of the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra. He's in Brooklyn tonight. Welcome to Varda, to Arturo. Jorge Francisco Castillo, the founder of Fandango Fronterizo, an incredible musician himself, and Kabir Sehgal, an American author, composer, producer, a military veteran, the author of 12 best-selling books, and of course, he's won 5 Grammys and 3 Latin Grammys as a record producer. So an incredible and talented team of people who are joining us tonight for this conversation, and I welcome all of them to our town hall. We'll see everyone in a couple of minutes here. And first of all, again, just remind everyone that you can participate. You can send your questions. At the end, we'll have, of course, time to go through that, a Q&A with the audience. And I'll try to be as brief as possible in my questions so we can have more time for that interaction. If you haven't been able to watch the film yet, it's on HBO Max. We just showed a quick trailer. And again, we're going to have an incredible conversation tonight with the people behind this film, with some of the people behind this film. The executive producers, of course, include Quincy Jones and Carlos Santana, among others. And in just a few minutes, when the technical difficulties allow us to start our town hall, we will have this conversation. And again, in the time I've had with some of the folks involved in this movie, I've gotten a better sense of why they decided to start this project, and of course, all the challenges that arose through filming. And the end result is really incredible. Is a really good way to know more about a beautiful part of Mexico that is not always at the top of our attention. And Veracruz is certainly a place that I recommend that everyone visits at least once in their life. So here we are, Varda, Arturo, Kabir, Jorge Francisco. Thanks for being here tonight. And you were playing some music, Arturo and Jorge, before we went on air, and I guess it's just part of the storytelling. The music is not something an additional component to this film, but it's at the heart of what this film is, Varda.
Yes. Did you say my name?
Yes. I'll start with you ladies first.
I was swept away by the power of music, and I was ready for music to break out. I thought, maybe Arturo would start playing the piano.
And Jorge Francisco promised to join with a guitar, but I see there, he's in Tijuana. But Varda, again, you have a brilliant career as a filmmaker, and this is the first time that you've come to a project where music is really the main theme here and the common denominator among all the storylines.
Well, I'm not a musician either, but I'm very drawn to music. Music has always been a salve for me as long as I can remember. And, I lived in New York City I went to high school in New York City. And for a while was living by myself when I was in high school, and someone had given me a record player and a few records. And, that's how I got through, so many difficult times. So music has always been important to me. And before I made Fandango at the Wall, I actually did make a music documentary. It's called Big Voice. And it was probably because of that Kabir and Arturo decided to entrust me with this extraordinary and exquisite project. So I do love the alchemy between music and film, and I love playing with those two forms together. And there's something that happens. The music itself is just so transcendent. And I think that if we didn't have any visuals at all with the film, and you just closed your eyes and you listened to it, you would still be taken on this extraordinary journey. And, so when you combine the images with it, it just takes it out there. And this is very much a musical journey as much as anything else.
It is a musical journey. And again, even for those of us who have no direct connection to Veracruz, my grandfather was born there, but it does, the textures, the story, the music, everything takes you back to not just Veracruz, but to Mexico, Arturo. And you were in Veracruz for the first time in your life, but you've always had a connection to Mexican folk music through your mother.
Yeah, well, I was born in Mexico City, and I was raised by tias y tíos who were from Guanajuato and who were from all over the great nation of Mexico. And so I grew up listening to Mexican music. Is very rich. It's very multifaceted, it's varied, it goes all over the place. So there isn't one thing that defines Mexican music, but the thing that makes Son Jarocho so special, it is what people sometimes refer to as Afro-Mexican music, because it has such a beautiful striation. The patterns, the jaranas, which the guitar instruments play, they all play different patterns, and it comes together in this beautiful mosaic, this pointillistic tapestry of color. And then on top of that, these beautiful improvised verses. It's really unlike anything that I can think of in the world.
And you make such an important point about the third root. In Mexico, until very recently, even the census didn't recognize this third root, Afro-Mexicans. And Veracruz, of course, is the epicenter of Black culture in Mexico, Jorge Francisco. But you're in Tijuana, and we always have this debate in the U.S. I've covered the border throughout the years. We always have this debate in the U.S. and in Mexico about the border, and the border is this, the border is that, across parties and ideologies, but you rarely hear from the border. It seems like they've taken away the voice of the border from this debate about it. And I was so glad that you are one of the main characters of the film, and you invite everyone to come to the border and see, this is what it looks like. Come here and experience it yourself. Don't just hear about it and, I don't know, news.
Yeah, especially the wall. You know, when it's been so popular. I mean, you probably, all of you probably agree with me that this word wall was put back in the dictionary with Mr. President Trump. You know, when he came back, everybody was talking about the wall, the wall, the wall, the wall. So to have this wall now and use it to do a fandango and to do a celebration and creating this atmosphere so rich of life and like Arturo said, of humanity and love, it's amazing. It's amazing. And you're right. We talk about the border, but being there is different. It's very, very rich. It's amazing.
And how did you come up with the idea for Fandango Fronterizo, Jorge?
Well, it happened because we had a community in Tijuana and San Diego that was playing this type of music. And fandangos are always happening when you're playing this music. You can do a fandango at your house, or you can do it at a park or anywhere. I mean, it's always open. It's always welcoming. It's always bring people, whoever wants to join, and you come in with your jarana and you start playing. It's a celebration as much as it's a ritual, because you always play the same tunes, pretty much the same tunes. It's like, I sometimes use this comparison, like going to church. You go to church and, you always start with the blessing from the priest. And no matter where you are, if you go to church, and I'm speaking as Catholic, if I go to Catholic church in Mexico, Tijuana, Monterrey, New York, wherever you go, it's always the same pattern. And it's the same thing with fandangos. Wherever you go, it's pretty much the same. So if you've been to one, you can join anyone. So you go with your jarana, you hear the word, there is going to be a fandango, and then just show up with your jarana, and pretty soon you'll be playing and following the rhythms and the music. So it's very unique that it brings people in. It's always open. You never see a door at a fandango. It's always open. That's how. I'm sorry, and to finish your question is to
yes.
The response to your question is that we had this fandangos, and we had fandangos in San Diego and fandangos in Tijuana, but we could never have one together because for the reason of the documents for our Mexican friends that couldn't cross the border because they had no visa or passport. And the guys from the U.S., they didn't want to go to Mexico because it was dangerous. It was not a good idea to go to Mexico, especially in 2007 when we started this fandango, when we started with the idea. So one day I went to the beach and it was an event to clean the beaches, and I saw this fence and said, like, wait a minute. This is a perfect size for a fandango. We can do our fandango without documents, everybody could be welcome. And because son jarocho is call and response, I thought we can sing on one side and respond on the other side. And we can have a tarima on the one side and tarima on the other side, and we can make this a huge celebration. So I brought it up to my friends, and at first we thought it's going to be difficult because the border patrol is going to say no, and no, it's going to be hard. And I said, let me give it a try. And then I started doing some research, talking to people, and we got the okay, and we've been going there. We've been standing at the wall for 13 years now, and
we're lucky. No, I was going to say we're lucky enough that now through the film we can all go there. We can all go to Playas de Tijuana. We can all go to both sides of the border and be there for this incredible event and for this magical moment at the border. Kabir, first of all, I wanted to ask you, was this the first time you've ever tried handmade tortillas? Because if they're as good as Arturo says they are on the film, I have to go there and try them myself.
Yeah, 100% it was, and it's the it should be on the brochures of Veracruz. Delicious food, delicious hospitality, and as Arturo says in the film, I don't think I've had one since, and I'm not going to have one until I go back, however long that may be. But you're right. I think Fandango at the Wall and Varda did such a great job of showing the food, the music, and there's an inviting spirit to this film, and there's an inviting spirit to, you see that through the food, you see that through the music, you see that as Jorge says, you never have to buy a ticket to go to a Fandango, you just enter, all are welcome. I've been around music a long time. This is the most inclusive, welcoming music I've experienced. And we were so grateful that HBO responded to this. And that was what they commented upon. They're like, there's a welcoming spirit that comes across in what Varda has created here, and we're so excited that it reached this platform, and for many more to see what Son Jarocho is about and to see what that tortilla is all about.
And there's something in the film for everyone, and I guess based in on our own experience with the themes that the movie touches. But here, I was going to ask you. There's also this, when you talk about how welcoming HBO was with the film and how you felt that Son Jarocho is just an inclusive experience. The entire idea, I think, and a common theme along the story is that idea of inviting people to just experience a different culture, a different kind of music, a different experience at a time where we're all otherwise, to look inwards, to build walls, to put national interest above everything else.
Yeah, and we really wanted to make sure that not only was the story one of no walls, but the production itself didn't have walls. What I mean by that is we did a lot of the post-production, all the post-production in Mexico City. We wanted to make sure that the cast and crew behind the camera was represented, Latino and Hispanic culture. So we didn't want to show it in front of the camera. What you see, we wanted to sort of live it through the personnel and the staff. And I think Varda deserves a lot of credit. Arturo deserves a lot of credit in terms of setting a vision that we want to. Music. There's also walls created within music, and Arturo can speak about how the genres are essentially just neural synapses saying, well, this is one type of music and this is another type of music, and we were just like, look, it's all music, then they're all notes. And so this was represented in the music, this was represented in the production crew, and Sony Latin, which was a production partner of us, they said when one of the executives saw it, was like, when I see this film, I feel like I'm invited. I feel like I'm at home. I feel like when the executive actually was like, when I go and try to sign a famous artist and I see the music they come from and their traditions, it feels like you've captured that, and you're able to you're now able to convey what I see in these many places around the world, whether it's rural Brazil or rural Mexico. And so I think people are yearning for this authenticity, and I hope that comes across in the film. And that's all, and it comes from this welcoming spirit of Son Jarocho. But I did want to make that point about we definitely wanted to make the production team. It really seemed like a bi-national collaboration, which it was.
And kudos to Varda for that and the entire team, because it does come across as a very authentic story about a very difficult place to navigate as it is, as Veracruz is right now. You don't feel it's made, you feel it's made by someone who knows Veracruz and Mexico very well. So as you know, again, as a Mexican immigrant here in the U.S. myself, I appreciate it and value that. Arturo, I want to go back to you because I know it's back to class for your students tonight, and you're going to have to jump off our town hall very soon. So to make the most out of your presence here, talk a little bit about what I found fascinating, the idea that there's a little bit of jazz in son jarocho, and if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I certainly be happy to. But I just wanted to, I was thinking about something Kabir said and about how we divide. And sometimes I feel like jazz is heading in that direction, or has sometimes been heading in that direction. But we divide music into jazz or classical or Mexican or this. And it's really weird because jazz comes from Afro-Latino roots. And I love the idea that you brought up, that third root, that idea that there's a connection between Africa and Mexico and Africa and Cuba and Africa and all of the beautiful music that we really understand to be music of the New World. Jazz is exactly an example of what son jarocho is an example of what we all should be. I am Mexican, Cuban, German, Irish. My wife is Jewish, African American, Native. I don't understand divisions. I never will. And I was raised in a household of an Afro-Cuban jazz legend. My degrees are in classical music, and I have a proclivity for jazz. There's so many. I can't stop. I can't stop at any one point. I can't stop at any one degree and say this is my fixed finite point of how I identify. If I did that, I would go nuts. And so it reminds me very much of the spirit of Louis Armstrong. Who was, by the way, the first musician to record El Manicero, the famous Cuban composition by Moses Simon, I think. But all the great ones understood this. Dizzy Gillespie spent tons of years in Cuba and Brazil. Wynton Marsalis has given us a prominent berth in his world. And I think it's important. I think it's important to realize that when you define yourself in finite points, you're missing the point of humanity. And so jazz reflects humanity, reflects son jarocho, reflects Mozart, who wrote, he was Austrian, German, writing Italian and French opera styles. This is what the point of my rambling is, that as we look within, what we're scared of is seeing one another. That's what we're scared of. We're scared of recognizing whom we don't know and whom we don't understand deep inside of us. And music like son jarocho, music like jazz, music that is free of those finite points helps us to look deeper inside and see one another in each other.
And that's such an important point. Again, Varda, we were saying that you made a really authentic film about Mexico and about a place like Veracruz. That's just a diverse and culturally rich and historically relevant point of Mexico and the entire region, really. But also the film, at a very deep level, is exactly what Arturo just said: an opportunity to see ourselves in others, to see, to learn from each other. I'm always interested in how these great films and artistic projects come about. When you first learned about this, how did you decide to get involved, and just walk us through the early stages of Fandango at the Wall?
Okay. Well, I will say I'm very intuitive, and when ideas land in my head, they just make me want to do it. There's just no shaking it. So in this case, I had already been thinking about, what do I want to, after I finished Big Voice, which I talked about earlier, I was thinking about what do I want to do next? And I felt really a strong desire, strong kind of motivation to tell an alternative story about my neighbors in Mexico and all, the Mexican Americans and Mexicans here in my community who I see all the time and know that they're nothing like what was being described, by the government. And so I was thinking about that. And then a fellow filmmaker of mine said to me, I heard that someone I know, a friend of his wants someone to film this festival at the border wall, a music festival. And at that moment, I just knew that was it. I mean, I just had to do it. Like that very moment, I thought, that's it. And then Kabir and I got on the phone and had this amazing kind of like mind meld, which has just continued since then, in regards to like our share, it's all of us actually. It's again, back to the law of attraction. Like as it turns out, everyone here, I'm sure many of the people in the audience, all the Sonorato musicians, everyone who participated in the Fandango, the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra and all those members, the guest artists, we all have the shared vision. And I think that's what the power of the film is. It's not just me, and also everyone in Mexico City, in Dinamita Post, the cinematographer. I mean, it's all these people coming together, just like in the Fandango, and with this shared vision. And there's so much power in that. And like my role was to step out of my own way, to step out of my way of what I know, of what I think, and what I think should be, and just be present to it, and just see it, and then do my best to capture what I'm seeing in a way that then can be communicated to an audience so that they can have the same shared experience that we've all had. So that's how it was. And I feel like it's still continuing that way. It's the same. It is what you said. The Fandango is now extending out well beyond the border. And eventually it's just going to cover the whole planet.
Hopefully, I think that'll be good for the planet. Arturo, I know you have to leave us, unfortunately. Just one quick final question that's a little bit off topic, but I wanted to, I've been asking artists, creators that I know that I've had a chance to interact with this question. And, you're in Brooklyn right now. We've all lived this sort of collective pause in the last 5-6 months. We've all experienced it differently. We know how it's affected the Latinx community disproportionately. But I wanted to ask you about the role artists have in moving forward. This idea that is through art and through creation that we're going to find a way to whatever's next. Right after the plague, we had the Renaissance, and so the responsibility artists have in that conversation. And I promise to let you go afterwards because I know you have.
No. I'm happy to answer that question. There are a lot of people who think artists should not have political and social views. There are a lot of people who think art is an abstract wallpaper experience. And I've actually, I've had people get very quasi-violent when I speak my mind on stage. And what I found is that that's just not historically true. The precedence for art reflecting the times is ancient, and especially in jazz, from the days of Louis Armstrong singing Why Am I So Black and Blue, and Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit, and Charles Mingus writing Fables of Faubus about the forced segregation in Arkansas schools. Musicians and artists and dancers and cinematographers and filmmakers and singers and stand-up comedians have reflected back to society the true nature of the time. So I take it very seriously. It's not a comfortable place. There's festivals I'm not invited to. There's folks that I don't get to play for. But I really think that there's a clarion call on us to be stewards, to be very clearly stewards of the messaging. I wish I had a better message sometimes. But yes, you're right. This is a tremendously difficult moment in American history, and I am proud to be an American. But it's a tremendously difficult moment in American history. And as an American, as an artist, as a human being of conscience, I must speak what I see, and sometimes that's not easy, or but it's what I do, and I have to be a good steward of that gift.
Well, we appreciate you doing that and being here with us tonight, and we'll let you go. I know that the audience has a bunch of questions for you, and we'll find a way to get those questions to you.
Thank you, guys. You guys are so beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful screen I'm looking at. Take care, guys.
Have a great night, Arturo. And Kabir, let's talk about the timing of the movie, Kabir. Arturo was just saying that artists have this even responsibility to reflect the time they live in through their work, and the film couldn't come at a more important time to speak about the border and to speak about the relationship between the U.S. and the world, particularly its neighbors.
Yeah, we like to think that, Enrique, the film is timely and timeless, and that it's timely in that what's going on with the political situation. But remember, we're always neighbors, the United States and Mexico, and there's always something going on between the United States and Mexico over 200 years. And that's trade, joint military drills. There's incredible agriculture that flows between both countries. So the reason I'm saying this is Mexico and America and the United States is a permanent evergreen topic for both countries. And so it just seemed like this film hopefully will carry on, and it'll stay the course of time. And that's also one of the reasons we didn't want to wade too deeply into the political situation. That was sort of intentional, because elected leaders come and go, but this music really doesn't. And the music always speaks to their hearts. So Fandango at the Wall is really, we find, it is timed. Yes, we say it at the beginning of the film. We're trying to dramatize and the juxtaposition of harmony of music, but the antagonistic nature of a wall. But we really hope that years from now, I know I'll be watching this film years from now and look back and say, you know what, this music still speaks to me. And I think this film's only been out a few days, but the responses we've been getting are that people are watching it a couple times, wants to watch the story, but then again to really relish the music, because the music is something that keeps kind of like bringing people back, as you can kind of listen to this thing and hear something new in the beautiful verses over and over and over again. So that's my comment on the timing of it.
I want to remind everyone that you can send your questions. We'll open up the virtual floor to your questions. So Varda and Jorge and Kabir can answer those questions. Just one last final question from me, Jorge. I'm fascinated by librarians, because I think that we're missing, in this conversation about misinformation and a post-truth world, the idea of librarians guiding us through knowledge, and doing that without bias and any other interest but knowledge itself. I think it's really important, right? You never went to a library and said, I'm trying to find a book about this subject, and just say, but are you a Democrat, a Republican, a PRD, a Cuarta Transformación? There's none of that. You just trust that the librarian is going to show you a range of options where you can yourself have all this knowledge. So long introduction for this question. How did your experience as a librarian and as a musician prepare you to tell this story that transcends disciplines and transcends borders and transcends moments in time?
That's a good question. Thank you. When I started playing this music, I read as much as I could. As a typical librarian, I will look for documents. I would look for as much as I could, and I fell in love with this idea of the fandango. Fandango, it's a celebration that helps you cure the pain, the sorrow, of all the history of Mexico, all the wars, even the conquest, and the richness of this celebration was so big that I thought, well, this is fascinating. So I want to be part of this. And when the Fandango Fronterizo, the border Fandango started, it was uh, it was fascinating to be able to see it, and to me, it's more an homage to all these people that have been cultivating this tradition for centuries. I mean, for 3 centuries, they had been cultivating this and bringing it to us, and now it has transcended because it used to be part of Veracruz. Now it's all over the world. Kabir and I, we had a great experience last year when we were traveling and we were in Paris, and we went to a fandango in Paris, right by on the foot of the Eiffel Tower. So it was incredible. I said, like, I can't believe I'm here playing music, son jarocho, at the Eiffel Tower, and with Kabir there. You know, it was incredible. So that's how things happen. You know, and like, you know, being a librarian has always been close to music, and musician always was close to music and culture. So it wasn't really difficult. I saw it more like an automatic road to getting with to get where I went. You know.
Absolutely. Kabir, you've experienced the world through many lenses and wearing many hats. I was saying when I introduced you, you're an artist. You're also a veteran in the Navy. You are an author of best-selling books, an investor. So you've experienced the world through many lenses. How is your experience in making this film and traveling to Veracruz different from everything else? Or was it different from things you've experienced in the past?
Yeah, I mean, it was in many ways. I made a lot of music. I've done a lot of music projects. This never made a film. And, Arturo and I did our previous project in Cuba, and we got back and we put out an album, and it did well. I think maybe it got 10,000 streams or 20,000 streams. And it was just like, I feel like the visual medium is so powerful, and that it reaches. We're a video culture. You know this, Enrique. You work in the news business, and you know the power of a good story. And just screening this, I've seen so much more engagement in film in this film project than I could get my parents to sit and watch a film. They would never sit and listen to an album all the way through. And so it's been remarkable being part of that. And versus what I've done in different parts of my life, we're many different artists on this project. And when we thought about this Fandango at the Wall project, we all kind of ran into our corners as to who can do what. So Arturo is a musician, and he was like, all right, I'm going to go write some music. So he went in that direction. And I was like, well, I'm an author. I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book on this topic and on the history of U.S Mexico relations. So I kind of ran in that corner. And then there was this third corner that it's not, maybe not a corner, 3 points of a room. And in the film side, I said, how are we going to find a film person? I don't really know anyone. And I was actually on a book tour for a book I had written. And someone said that they knew someone at Netflix or something. And I just wrote his name down on a business card, and I just kind of filed it away. And then when we decided to do the film project, I was like, okay, let me reach out to this one person. And he heard the story, kind of introduced us to Varda. And I guess the point here I'm trying to make is that I'm a big proponent of doing many things at once. Maybe that doesn't seem undisciplined, or maybe that seems like undisciplined, but actually you start to see connections with girls, and you can kind of like hop domains pretty quickly and say, oh, I'm a music person or I'm a book person, and I met someone here, and you can kind of like start. It's amazing the synchronicity of it. And so I've always been a fan of like trying to get good at one thing, obviously, but if you can, try to diversify, because you start to meet people in different fields. And I'm not trying to give a management a lesson here, but that's how I think, and that's how I think. And I'm a big believer in this portfolio career concept of trying to see the connections between things. But it's been an absolute privilege to make Fandango at the Wall, and Varda has really been a mentor, thinking about, all right, how do you think about the story, and what is the coloring process, and what is the sound process? The sound process I was more comfortable with, and also thinking about, there are a lot of artists on this project, and understanding like who's on the screen, who's not on the screen, and navigating those conversations. So
Like you said, I'm in news broadcasting, so I'm used to managing egos. Hopefully, yes.
There wasn't a lot of that in this, virtually none, which was good. But it is certainly a consideration of this medium that you're an expert at this, Enrique, and you know the power, as I said, of visual. So this is the first. You always remember your first. I remember the first book I wrote. I remember the first album I made. This is my first film production, and what a way to start, to be working with such great collaborators. And there was moments of frustration when like we needed something to happen at a certain time, but we just like kept on going and solving one thing at a time, and here we are. And philosophically, everyone, Varda was saying, was always on the same page. And usually in my other world, especially in business, people are not on the same page. People are trying to get, working across purposes when I worked in banking. But on this project has been sort of like full steam ahead.
And Varda, how difficult was it to work on the film, on the post-production during the last few months? Because now we spoke this morning over the phone, and you were in the middle of film festivals and the HBO premiere and the HBO Max. Now you can watch the film streaming on HBO Max. So all these things at once and remotely, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's interesting. I mean, we just got good fortunes rained upon us. As Kabir had mentioned, all the post-production was done in Mexico City at a place called Dinamita Post. And when the original concept was, there's another editor who's sort of the supervising editor here named Luis Carbalar, who's the brother of the owner of Dinamita Post. And he's a very accomplished editor. He's edited Amores Perros and Los Inocentes. And, so the idea was that he would be here, and at a certain point he'd step in, but he'd supervise, and then we'd collaborate binationally, me being here and the editors and the rest of the Post being done in Mexico City. And it all sounded very good. But then what I didn't take into account is that there's so much that is communicated that is nonverbal when we're working very closely with our collaborators. In fact, we don't even know how. We know language communicates. We know, the body movements and so forth communicate. But there's other forms of communication we're not even aware of. So it was very challenging when we were trying to do the Post with me here and me in Mexico City. And then I just remember one day I just threw my arms up in there and I said, okay, that's it. I have to go to Mexico. And then the moment I arrived in Mexico City and sat down next to Luisa, who's the editor, it just all started clicking and it all started flowing. And we just immediately started having breakthroughs. It was super challenging up till that point, the post-production. Then we actually arrived back in January, and we were still doing some work. We were still doing a little bit finessing, editing, and we were still working actually once the pandemic hit for a few months. Really in March is when we locked it. So it's been, it's been fortuitous, I think, in the sense that this is the medicine that the world needs right now. And I think it's, especially, being received, it's being embraced because of that. So, it's a good, there's a greater purpose, there's a greater something happening with this film beyond anything we imagined.
I don't want to ask you who your favorite character in the movie is, because I'm going to put you in a difficult position, Varda, but we discover all these wonderful characters along the way in the journey to Veracruz and back in the border. El Toro, they call him? The
Tronco? El Tronco?
El Tronco. Yes. I mean, this place in the middle of Veracruz, this family that's dedicated their life to son jarocho, to the traditions of son jarocho. How was it to just spend time with them off camera, and how do you tell their story in a dignified and in a way that really it's authentic and powerful and true to these amazing characters?
Well, it's because that's who they are. They are these extraordinary human beings. They are so filled with wisdom, so filled with understanding of their connection with the earth. They are so accomplished, in their artistry. They have dedicated their lives to this music. So it's simply, revealing who they are. And it's the same, with the other, with, Patricio and his family, Yara. I mean, my gosh, look at that dancing. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's mind-boggling how brilliant she is. And, Patricio writing those lyrics and that music, Fernando with his poetry and his deep insights. I mean, every time I hear Fernando speak, even to this moment, I start crying. I just can't even help it. Tacho and Wendy and their love for each other and their craftsmanship, and Tacho with his capabilities, making the instruments, and that place that he lives in, that house, that magnificent house in the middle of the jungle with those beautiful, everything in it is beautiful. In fact, all of them is that way. Like their sense of aesthetic is so heightened, that you just you're just wowed, and you just also but with all of that and all that level, and Ramon, and that courtyard that he lives in, or that his studio is in, where the houses are all different colors and they have eyes. I don't know if you noticed.
I hear you narrating all of this, and it's like a Latin American novel, right? Like all these characters are right out of a novel, fiction.
It is, but this is all real, and I was just awed by them, but also I really felt a deep connection with them. As artists, as mutual artists, I felt we had so much in common in terms of our purpose in life, and our sense of how we how they value everything. Every little thing matters, the way it looks, the way you look at it, the way you speak about it, and they were so respectful, and they opened up their homes to us, and they made us feel like we were so welcome. And they have taught me so much. I'm a significantly better person, and the way that I feel about others, the love that they exemplify, it's contagious. And, so again, it's just me stepping out of the way and just allowing the truth of this community flow. And, this son jarocho music, its time has come. That's what it is. Its time has come. This is when we need it, and it's allowing itself to be shared.
That's actually a beautiful thing to say for son jarocho and the times that we're living in. And I had no connection to the film prior to watching it. It came to me through someone I know in California, who sometimes talks to us about potential story ideas. And because of the timing, we couldn't do a story for 16/6 for the show I work for. But I said, I have to do something about this and tell all the people I know to watch it. But if there anything else I can do, I'm happy to do it. And that's how I ended up having the chance to talk to you tonight and getting to know more about the story, about Jorge, about Arturo, Kabir, about you and your beautiful film, Varda. And just some final thoughts on what this project means to all of you and what you hope that it achieves now that it's out there and for people to watch it. Kabir, I'll start with you.
Well, I was going to say first, my favorite character is definitely Jorge, and he's
yeah.
We always play with this. That's why he's going to.
No, I'm just saying. Ask me on the next show, whoever it is. I love them all, but I'll say this: we want music can be ahead of our times, and I think Fandango at the Wall creates a vision of what U.S. Mexico relations can become. And it's really, you think back historically, jazz has been the language of music, has been the language of protest and freedom. Dave Brubeck, Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, the State Department would ask these musicians to go abroad and sort of represent American democracy. Louis Armstrong could go easily on both sides of the Iron Curtain in Berlin. He could go back and forth. People loved him. So in that same way, Jorge and Arturo and Varda, they're the modern artists. They're the incarnations, I would say, of the creative spirit of Louis Armstrong, Dave Brubeck, Ella Fitzgerald, that are showing that, hey, art can actually bring us together. Jazz was the first part of American civil society that was integrated back in the 20s and 30s. Blacks and whites were playing together. And here you have up on the big screen, Hispanics, Mexicans playing alongside people from the United States. And we're all getting along, and we're taking the border wall, which is meant to divide us, and saying, you know what? This is actually bring us together. So we redefine the wall. So I just hope more and more people will see this. I hope more people will tune in and see, you know what, there's a different narrative than what's pervading the body politic, and that is that music can really point the way for what our countries can really become. And I hope there's a rapprochement between our countries in the coming months, and led by music.
Jorge.
Well, thank you so much, Enrique, for having us here tonight, and for being the host of this program. A couple of things I would like to say. Fandangos haven't been happening in the last 7 months because of the pandemic. So it's amazing the timing of this movie, because it feels like it's a little bit of medicine to cure this anxiety for having a fandango. So we cannot go to a fandango, but we can watch this movie, and it's beautiful. And I hope I see it as an homage to all my maestros, which is Patricio, Ramon, Tacho, Wendy, and others that are in Veracruz that I have learned from, and to all the musicians and jaraneros and jaraneras, musicians that play son jarocho in Veracruz and Mexico at the border, when in Tijuana and San Diego, when we celebrate this. And I hope all of them enjoy this film and see themselves and feel very proud of this documentary, because this is son jarocho is something we love, and to see a film about something you love so much, I think it can be really very rich. And also, like Kabir said, I think during these times in our two countries, I hope this brings us together even more, because we're always been together, but there's always this challenge, the wall, the border, you're Mexican, you're on the other side, and blah, blah, blah. So hopefully this will bring us together and let us, and reminds us that, we're all human beings. That's the most important thing.
And Varda, you get the final word tonight.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you, Enrique, for for moderating so beautifully, and I want to thank Town Hall for hosting us, and I want to thank our audience. I'm realizing, and I've been starting to say to myself and share that, this film was ours, but now it's yours. And for me, my greatest hope is that for those of you who are watching the film, that you see yourself in it, and that it mirrors for you like the most beautiful part of yourselves, and that it shows you that, no matter what obstacles you're facing and no matter what difficulties you're facing, we can rise up and you can sing, you can dance, that it's, that in the face of the greatest difficulties, there's always this human spirit that rises up above the wall, above the divisions. And, for those who recognize themselves in some way in the film, I hope that the film serves you to show you your beauty, and that I want to let you know that it celebrates you. And I'm just, want to do that. I want to just celebrate you and have this film, uplift you. And that's my hope.
So we are going to end it on that note. At the beginning, I said borrowing from each other's cultures, learning from each other's cultures, and now I can say celebrating each other's cultures. So Varda, Kabir, Jorge Francisco, all the people at Town Hall, Milei, Alex, who are behind the scenes tonight, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And if you haven't watched Fandango at the Wall, you can do it on HBO. It's streaming also on HBO Max, as I understand. And give yourself the chance to experience this beautiful film and this love letter to Fandango and to a beautiful narrative about the border and about our shared destiny. Have a great night, everyone, and thanks again for letting me be part of this. I'm Enrique Acevedo, signing off. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Enrique.